Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we'll see how to draw this oil lamp using oil pastels. So this is the oil lamp that I'm going to draw. I used an A3 size chart paper and there is some shadows caused due to the lamp behind onto the wall. Since this lamp is a symmetrical object, drawing it can be really tricky. So what I did, I took another piece of paper. I drew one half of the lamp and I folded it and I traced it with the pencil itself so that I can draw the other half of the lamp. And using this as my reference, I drew the lamp on the paper. However, this has some disadvantage, I'll be telling you later. Now I used the Mangyo Gallery Artist's soft oil pastels. This is the first time I'm using these oil pastels and I'll be reviewing them in the next video on this channel. And by the way, make sure you follow me on my Instagram because I'll be giving you small sneak peeks of my upcoming videos there so that you won't miss out my upcoming videos. And everything about this video is new to me. Where to begin? Well, the paper I used was from Belt Matrix. It was a 30 GSM A3 sized paper and it has a slight texture, which was a good thing because this was a very big painting for me, and it had so many layers and transitions, so it required so many layers of oil pastels. So having a paper with tooth is very desirable. The way I'm filming this video is also different, and also this is the first time I'm using an artist grade oil pastels. Thanks to Unni Babu who suggested me to use this brand. I'm just so happy with this. If you guys have any video requests, let me know in the comments below and also give me your feedback because it makes my day. I'll be drawing a dog with oil pastels in my upcoming video as one of you guys suggested. Normally all my oil pastel paintings are done on small sized papers. They're very small in size, so they were finished in like a couple of hours. But since this is a very big paper and it is a big drawing, so it took me about 3 days to finish, roughly about 15 hours. So that's the reason the video is very long. I just wanted to keep it very detailed, and I had to cut some bits here and there and fast forward the rest because, to keep it short. Okay, so I drew a small crow-like shape on the wall. That is like an irregularity or indentation on the wall. So that's the reason I wanted to show that the wall behind the lamp isn't smooth. Of course, it was there in the reference picture too, but I don't think I recreated it exactly. I thought this will be the perfect painting tutorial to show for oil pastels because there's a lot of gradient involved in this painting. As you can see, there's a transition from deep red to orange to yellow and again to the shadows here. I normally don't use my fingers to blend oil pastels that much. I mean, I use the pastel itself, but in this painting I used my fingers a lot, and it was very helpful too because these pastels are amazing and you can easily blend them with your fingers. Right now it looks quite dirty, but as I keep on layering, you will see that there will be a gradual change. That's the reason I showed you the final painting first, so that you won't get worried. The video right now is kind of out of focus. I didn't really observe that, but later on it will be in focus. I feel one of the biggest challenges of doing art is that you never know how it'll end up. Because right now it looks like, oh my god, what is this? But later on, it really takes courage and patience to move forward. But then what I thought was, anything that we do, any art that we do, it's going to be a new lesson for us. It's going to teach us something. It's going to be a practice for us. So if you do something wrong, that's okay. Next time you can do it right. Don't get angry. Don't tear your artwork or don't leave it, okay? Always finish it. A shadow consists of two parts, the umbra and the penumbra. So the inside part, that is the umbra, is very dark and the outside part is very blurry and it is light. That is the reason I used two colors here. I used the dark brown for the inside part of the shadow, and for the outside part I used light brown, which I will later blend into the orange background. So if you can see, I have blended my shadows using the orange oil pastel. And now moving on to the chimney of the lamp. So this is the lamp. This is a typical Indian lamp. I don't know if everyone uses this, but yeah, it was used in olden days. We used kerosene oil in the bottom. So first I covered the entire chimney using light pressure with a green oil pastel. The pastel I used here is dark green. One thing I need to tell before we proceed is that I traced the lamp, as I said, from the reference that I drew earlier. The problem with tracing is that it creates a small, it creates a small indentation in the paper. So the pastel wouldn't go inside the part where you traced, so it will be left white in those areas. So I suggest that if you can do the lamp without tracing it or without any reference, then it's good, but otherwise just use very light pressure with pencil. I didn't use any carbon paper or tracing paper. What I did, I just traced it by putting the reference paper over the main drawing sheet. So I used a very heavy pressure, and that was a disadvantage, though I don't think you can see on the camera, but yeah, putting the pastel in those indentations, in those areas, was quite a task. So make sure you do it with light pressure when you're tracing. The reason the top of the chimney is dark green in color is because it's covered in soot, and soot is generally brown or black, but because the lamp is lit, it kind of appears like greenish. If you can observe, all my first layers of oil pastel are applied with very light pressure. It's with the second or the third layer that I start applying more pressure and I start blending in the colors. So this is highly necessary, because whenever you're doing with oil pastels, you need to make sure that you do more layers so that it gives that beautiful oil painting effect as you use more layers. So if you use in the first layer itself, if you make it very thick, then it's not going to look good. Also, it will be very difficult to blend the colors. So the first layer acts like an underpainting, over which you kind of build the layers and you mix the colors. Since this was a painting done on a big scale, I observed that building layers with oil pastels creates a beautiful effect. For the bottom of the chimney, I used brown and green. So most of the time I was using dark green or olive green. Okay, now the color that I used here is called ochre, and it was so helpful. It was like a nude color which I could use over any layer to blend the colors. It was like a neutral color. I love this color. If you can see, I use this ochre almost everywhere in this painting, and it was so helpful to blend. So in order to blend oil pastels, it's really good when if you can find a neutral sort of color to blend everything. I mean, the color varies from subject to subject. Here it is slightly brownish, neutral colors. That's why I used ochre. Sometimes you need to use some other color for the blending. It acts like a top coat or a top layer. Now, using too many layers is not desirable, so just keep your layers to maybe 2 to 3 or 4, but not more than that, because the oil pastel gets scraped off. It also depends on the texture of your paper. If your paper has more texture, then you can add more layers of oil pastel. And this is the painting where I used my fingers a lot to blend. If you want, you can use blending tools like tortillons or stumps, but I think with fingers you can have more precision and control while painting. This is a light green. It is called what is it called? Lime green. I use some lime green on the outside and also some yellow. It's pale yellow. The most important thing to remember while doing oil pastel paintings is to keep a piece of cloth beside you while you're doing it, so that you can wipe off the excess pigment onto the cloth. If you can see, I just scraped off a little bit of oil pastel with my fingernail here. So if you do some mistakes here and there, you can just scrape it off a bit. Since this painting took so long to complete, I cut parts wherein I blended with my fingers, and I cut parts where here and there which I thought were like not so important to show. I used a little bit of orange to get that luminescence from the bottom. And here is where I used the black oil pastel just for the outline. Whenever you're using black, if you want to mute the effect of black, you can just use a dark brown over the black. Okay, so the bottom of the chimney holder is copper. It's generally made of iron, but here it appears to be copper. So to get that color, I first gave a base of dark brown, and over it I applied a deep red. And for the highlights, I used some salmon color. Now the salmon is so pigmented and it kind of gave a beautiful effect. I love this color. And yeah, this is another shade of brown that I used. It is russet. For the shadows, I used another shade of brown, and let me tell you what shade it is. Yeah, it is called raw umber. So here's the close-up. This is vermilion. I hope that's the way you spell it, vermilion. It's like a primary red. Also, it's advisable to cut your nails before you do this painting, because sometimes, the pastel accidentally gets scraped off. But I was very careful in the entire painting. I used white at the bottom for the highlights. So it is the flame inside that's being reflected. And the same goes here. Again, that's raw umber for the shadows. The colors that I'm telling, I know you can see that I'm using these particular colors, but the colors that I'm telling are the shade names mentioned on the oil pastel. So if you're using the same set of oil pastels that is among your gallery, then you will know that what color I'm using. Again, I gave my highlights using the salmon color and the shadows using the dark brown color. And this is vermilion again for the holder. Normally you twist the holder in order to raise the wick of the lamp. Just a little bit of extra information. So this is the glass bottle in which the oil is filled. Normally kerosene oil is used. So for this I used dark green oil pastel. For the edges I used dark green oil pastel, and then I just gave light strokes using the dark green oil pastel at the bottom, that is for the underpainting. I really loved how this glass turned out to be. It was just as I thought it should be. So this is another green. This is the emerald green. And this is the dark brown, in order to show that there's some oil level inside. So I used some dark brown color to show the oil and also to highlight the shadows. Oh, which shade is that now? One sec. The pastel that I'm using here is moss green. This is the pastel that I used for most part of the glass bottle. If you can see, the bottle is curved. That is the reason we have shadow in the lower half of the bottle, because the upper half has light falling on it and the lower half doesn't have light. That's why shadow is created. Now I drew that's the wick, and I drew it using black and dark brown oil pastel. And yes, here I created highlights using a light green color. To be more specific, it is the which color is that? It is the lime green. Normally if you don't have this shade, you can use white for the highlights, but as I said, it was very helpful for me to find these beautiful shades in this 50 colored set. And again, I've switched on to the moss green color. Normally we think it's a green bottle, so we go for green, but it's amazing how many shades just made this bottle together. I used so many shades here. Okay, for the darkest of the dark, that is for the shadow and also for some ridges present on the glass bottle, I used black. I didn't want the black to be very intense. That is the reason I first painted the bottle with green and then with dark brown, and then I topped it off with the black. And notice how I'm blending the pastels, blending the colors here. I applied some green at the bottom and I blended both of the colors together. If you can notice my strokes here, I didn't do them straight. I did them in circles because I found that to be more easier to work in small areas at once. So here I'm doing the ridges of the bottle, and again I switched on to the green, the lime green. It was really a fun process to do this painting. I really enjoyed every part of painting this picture. That's a slight orange right there, and a little bit of yellow for the highlight, topped with some white. And that's olive green once again. Slightly blended with my finger. So again we come to the right side of the painting. Now this is where I did not really do everything in detail. I just fast forwarded most of it due to time constraints, because this video is pretty long already, and space constraints too. I didn't have enough memory in my computer. Well, so the top right corner of the painting is very dark because light hasn't reached there. And as it proceeds downwards, the light gradually fills in. Here I used a deep red at the top, and as I moved down I used vermilion, followed by deep orange, followed by light orange. So I just left it there and I proceeded to the bottom right corner of the painting. It was predominantly green and brown, so that's why I used green as the underpainting. I did some dark spots right there. That was the irregularities in the wall, but later on I blended them. I just left 2-3 spots, the rest of them I just blended. I used golden yellow for most of the right side of the painting. And again my favorite ochre here. I mixed ochre with orange for a very subtle shadow area. These aren't tiny mountains, these are the shadows cast by the ridges of the chimney holder, because light is passing through the ridges and that's why they are casting shadows on the wall. The shadows are very blurred and irregular because probably the wall is uneven, and also light is falling at an angle through the ridges. That's the reason they are like peaks. So again I went back to the shadow area. To be honest, I could have worked even more on that area, but I think I left it like that because I was afraid I might spoil the painting. So I went ahead with some brown and some deep red. All those black spots you see, those tiny cockroach type spots, they are the irregularities and the small dents present in the wall, which are creating shadows. That's the reason I drew them like black spots. So here, if you can see, there's a small shadow area in the middle of the wall, followed by little bit of yellow and then the main shadow. I used some green for the shadows. It is olive brown actually. It's olive. There are two similar shades here. One is olive brown and one is olive green. So I used olive brown for the shadows, and also ochre for blending everything in place. Okay, this is the part where I worked a lot, but it really took me quite a while for that. The green underpainting that I did before, it was showing through the yellow light, and so I had to go through a lot of layers of oil pastel over there. I really wanted it to be a transition from light to dark. That's why I went over with from ochre to moss green. And there again I used some dark green and some red. Now I'm using different shades of brown over here. Okay, so basically I just layered using different shades of brown and green in order to get this, and I topped it off with some golden yellow and I blended it with my fingers. And now coming to the bottom of the painting. The green bottle reflects some green light onto the surface. That's why I painted a little bit of green at the bottom. This is olive brown and this color is golden yellow once again. I gave a small black border to the glass bottle at the bottom, just like a small shadow. And this is russet. Okay, this is the salmon color again. It was very helpful. It really created a beautiful effect. This is the lime green for the small highlight. So I blended everything using my fingers. And we are done. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you won't miss out my upcoming videos, and also comment down below and give me your feedback and follow me on my Instagram, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.